Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Your video is about to start. I wanted to remind you of our newer Wednesday, 1 p.m. live stream Q&A on all things Social Security. Visitors are welcome to post a question in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer it. It's on a first come, first serve basis, so please get there on time. Otherwise, if you care to be a member and get some different kinds of perks, feel free to click the join button below or just click it to learn about them. Anyway, I hope to see you Wednesday. If not, enjoy the video. Bye now. Happy Friday, guys. It is evening, but I just got an email from the SSA alerting us to a policy change in terms of overpayments. As you might know, and I will say this is going to go out to the general public tomorrow because today's video already went out, but the members will see this tonight. For those that this is of interest to. Okay, so as you know, under I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, there was a policy change under the prior administration that changed policy that had been forever and ever under Obama and Trump 1. And I'm not sure, but probably the Bushes and maybe before that, who knows? But it always kind of remained the same. And at the end of the last term, the last few months, they decided to change it. And that was the overpayment policy, where if you are overpaid and you have not requested um, a payment plan, you haven't, you know, sought a waiver, and you have not appealed it saying that that's wrong, then your future Social Security benefits would be withheld to pay that back. So they would start with, a soon in the future month and just withhold it, withhold until you've paid it back. Unless you've taken some kind of affirmative action to say, no, please don't do that. Here's my appeal, or here's my waiver, or here is my request for a payment plan. And by the way, we're only talking about Social Security. We're not talking about SSI. SSI is not changing at all. That has a 10% default recovery rate, and it doesn't go above that, for the obvious reasons of what SSI is about. So anyway, this is getting reversed. It's kind of an obvious, you know, for those of us that look at numbers and sustainability, it kind of was an obvious thing that had to be done. It was a lot of people were questioning how on earth it was going to be able to sustain by now not recovering. When you do 10%, you're not going to recover most of the overpayments that people wrongfully received, whether they were at fault or not. It's still funds out of the Social Security funds that is used to pay people who are eligible for payments, right? So it has to be accounted for. Um, Apparently, it's about $7 billion over the next uh, 10 years. So it is pretty significant. Um, so it will now, okay, so another important thing to note is that it is not anyone who's on a payment plan now that had the 10% default in these last few months that it actually applied, they get to keep it. They're not going to pull anyone in and make them change. It's kind of like a grandfathering is the way I look at it. It will only be those after March 27th, new overpayment people. Um, so again, all it takes is just doing what you do whenever you see a problem with your Social Security. You take the steps that they say to take in the letter. And the letter is going to say you can appeal if you disagree. And I always recommend appealing. If you're not sure that they're correct from a legal standpoint, I'd appeal for sure. And while you're appealing, you can also ask that your benefits continue pending appeal, I believe. And you can ask for that prepayment, the payment plan, in order to repay. And that all those things you can do. Now, if you've done them, this 100% isn't even going to apply, but I don't know how time frames work. Humans being humans, staffing being low, all that business. So while I don't have a problem with the reverting back to the 100% thing if you fail to take action, But I know a lot of people will, including people that will just complain about anything that is um, going to happen where some people aren't gonna get to keep money that perhaps they weren't eligible for. So, I thought what one suggestion I would have if I were making the decisions is uh, having a certain time frame before which it would go over 10%. So let's say instead of just being like, well, unless this is the way it is, it's kind of hard to get a grasp on. Um, if if someone has an overpayment, instead of boom, 100% stoppage today, maybe give them 60 days at 10%. But with the if you don't give evidence as to why it should remain 10% or 20 or something else, then it goes to 100%. If you haven't lifted a finger to explain, you're asking basically for a gift of sorts of not having to, keep getting your benefits when you owe actually money to the SSA, then, I don't really have a problem with the 100%. Now, one might say, but what about a senior or a disabled person who can't act on their own behalf? Those individuals should have representative payees. So if that ball's been dropped by family or the SSA even, but I can almost guarantee that as soon as that person sees that they're not getting a check, they're going to be on the horn with the SSA. So they're going to rise to the occasion. If they don't, they have a representative payee already, or they have a guardianship, or they're in a nursing home. You see? So I know it sounds harsh, but there were so many people saying, how can they do, like, how could they make this overpayment? It's basically, it was almost like saying overpayments don't have to be repaid when they did the 10%. I mean, that's what a lot of people inside and outside were saying. And I saw the point because if you do the math, if you're only paying 10% and you owe a decent amount, it might never get paid. And so who's paying for it? That would be you. That would be every other claimant and beneficiary going forward because their fund is now never going to be replaced for the money that was incorrectly paid out of it and received by somebody else. Um, you know, the 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 rumor on the grapevine being, of course, by some, not by all, but by some, that the strange timing of the policy change at the latter half of 2024 was for a reason, that it was known to be unsustainable. Let's it's like grandma giving the kids all the sugar so that the parents have to deal with it when the grandma goes home. So I'll let you figure that one out. But that's probably what was going on. It's dirty pool, but that's what politics does to people. Um, but anyway, so if you find yourself in an overpayment after March 27th, do not sit on your do not panic and sit. I have videos from before, which are just as valid now, obviously, of what you can do. And if they're good with payment plans. I have found them always to be really good with payment plans. Waivers a little tougher. You have to be literally paycheck to paycheck on a limited income with you can't be, well, I might have $100,000 of income because of my spouse, but we got lots of bills and credit cards. Well, credit cards don't come before, your owages to the Social Security fund, of course. But definitely take action. Payment plan, waiver if it's appropriate, and that's if it's a hardship. And again, hardship doesn't include because I got to pay off that fancy jewelry I bought last month. Hardship is when your rent, reasonable rent, you're not in a 10-bedroom mansion, is is not going to be able to be paid, along with your utilities, and your basic needs like that. They are very understanding, I have found, when you present it, and you have to present those bills and explain any other income or whatever. I would do that. And overpayments obviously need to be paid back, but they can do it in a humane way, as they had been, in my experience, from the people who properly addressed it. The people that put their head in the sand and just don't do anything, they get whacked, because you're presenting that it's not an issue, that yes, I can pay back every month all my benefits every month. And because some people can, and I've had I've had people come to me asking about overpayments, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I think I just rather pay it all back. We'll be fine, but it'll be nice when my payments start up again." So everyone's different. We got people of all different levels of wherewithal. So if the wherewithal is harsh, there's so much you can do. So don't panic. But I know this is one's going to make you watch the headlines tomorrow. I bet you it's going to be like every clickbait, screaming, head spinning, vomit spewing. I don't know. It's going to be bad. I just know it because we see this all the time. Um, but it was to be expected by most people who had kind of a clue. Um, even before we knew there was going to be a new administration, it was like, how is that going to work? Is that can that really work? I mean, money doesn't fall from trees into the Social Security fund, so how's that going to work? Anyway, that's what it is, guys. Um, hate to be the bearer of what some will think is the bad news. I think it's as dealable as it was before. You just have to take the action, and the actions are listed in the letter you get if you get an overpayment letter. And better yet, if you follow the parameters of your, and again, I'm not talking about SSI because that is really complicated for people. And I understand it's very complicated. But for the rest of us, Social Security, it is very easy to stay within the rules. It really is. You just have to make sure you know them. So study up. And I know we have playlists on that. And you can always throw the question out under a video, or even put it out if you go to the Q&A live sessions on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard, throw out a question if you have. But those avenues to protect yourself are there so that you don't ever have an overpayment to begin with, because then you have to face it and you have to repay it back. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.